Have you ever wondered how everything began? Before the stars filled the sky, before the oceans roared, and before humanity walked the earth, there was only the power of God. In the vast emptiness, a divine voice spoke, and from nothing, everything came into existence. This is the story of Genesis, a tale not just of creation, but of purpose, choice, and redemption. Many see Genesis as just an ancient text, but what if I told you it holds secrets that still shape our world today? The book of Genesis is not just history, it's a blueprint of divine design, a revelation of who we are and why we exist. It's a journey through the origins of the universe, the first human struggles, and the unfolding of God's eternal plan. From the breathtaking moment when light pierced the darkness to the formation of humanity in God's own image, every chapter reveals something deeper about our connection to the Creator. But not all was perfect. Free will brought both beauty and tragedy, and the choices made in Eden echo throughout history. The fall of man, the great flood, the covenant with Abraham, each event sets the stage for the greatest story ever told. But here's the question: why does this ancient story still matter? Because it's more than just the past. It's about you, your origins, your purpose, your destiny. Genesis isn't just the beginning of everything. It's the beginning of understanding who we are in the grand design of the power of God. Are you ready to uncover the truths hidden within these ancient words? Join me on this journey through the book of Genesis, where we'll explore the wonders of creation, the trials of humanity, and the promise that still stands today. This isn't just history, it's the foundation of everything. And as we dive into these stories, you may just discover that they have more to do with your life than you ever imagined. In the beginning, before there was time, space, or matter, there was only the power of God. In an instant of pure divine authority, God spoke, "Let there be light." And light was born, dispelling the darkness. It was not just a physical phenomenon. It was the first demonstration of the absolute power of the divine word. Creation was not a random event, but an intentional act, designed with perfection. Imagine the vast emptiness being filled by the command of a supreme being, shaping the universe with a defined purpose. In the following days, the power of God continued to manifest his sovereignty over the primordial chaos. God separated the waters, creating the sky as a firmament above the earth. Then, he brought forth dry land, covering it with lush vegetation, fruit-bearing trees, green fields, and seeds ready to multiply. Every detail, every leaf, every drop of dew carried the mark of perfection. Have you ever observed the complexity of a single flower? Every cell, every color, all designed by a superior mind. Then came the celestial bodies, the sun to govern the day, and the moon to illuminate the night. God positioned each star like an artist painting the canvas of the sky. From that moment, the seasons, lunar cycles, and tides began to follow a celestial harmony. It was not by chance that the movements of the heavenly bodies were defined. It was a divine orchestration. If even the stars obey an exact rhythm, imagine the care God took in planning every detail of your life. Life in the waters and the sky was the next step in creation. The waters teemed with fish. Magnificent creatures swam in the oceans, while the skies were filled with birds of all colors and songs. Have you ever thought about the impressive diversity of creation? From the graceful flight of an eagle to the iridescent shimmer of a fish deep in the sea, every living being reflects the greatness of the Creator. God saw that it was good, and the fullness of life began to spread across the earth. On the sixth day, creation reached its peak. God formed land animals and finally humankind. But here lies a crucial detail. While everything was created by the power of his word, man was shaped by God's own hands. Made in his image and likeness, humans were not just another creature, but a reflection of divinity. This means you carry within you a trace of the Creator himself. Have you ever stopped to think about the depth of that? Adam and Eve were placed in the Garden of Eden, a paradise where everything was in harmony. Nature surrounded them with abundance, and God's presence was constant. They had freedom, but also responsibility. After all, the power of God not only creates, but also establishes order. This is a powerful lesson. Freedom without purpose turns into chaos. In your life, how have you been using the free will that God has given you? God instructed Adam and Eve to take care of the garden and enjoy everything, with only one exception: not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Here arises a fundamental principle: obedience. Many see this command as a restriction, but in reality, it was a test of trust. In the same way, today we face choices that determine our path. Have you reflected on the decisions you make daily? The seventh day arrived, and God rested. Not because he was tired, but to establish a principle. Rest is also part of creation. In a frenetic world where productivity is exalted, we forget that even the Creator paused. Rest is not a waste of time, but an act of faith. When we trust in God, we learn to balance work and renewal. When was the last time you truly rested, trusting that He takes care of everything? And so, the book of Genesis begins its epic journey, showing not just the origin of the world, but the divine intention behind every detail. Creation was not an isolated event, but the beginning of a story of love, redemption, and purpose. But not everything remained perfect. What happened next changed the course of humanity forever. The perfection of Eden was about to be challenged. In the heart of Eden, a serpent appeared, cunning and persuasive. It approached Eve with a question that would alter history. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? Doubt was planted. The enemy's strategy was not a direct attack, but a subtle twisting of words. That same deception still exists today. How often do we justify choices by slightly altering the truth? Eve saw that the fruit of the forbidden tree was appealing, good for food, pleasing to the eye, and desirable for wisdom. She took it, ate, and gave some to Adam. In that moment, innocence was lost. Their eyes opened, and for the first time, they felt shame. Have you ever made a decision that instantly filled you with regret? That is the weight of disobedience. Hearing God's footsteps, they hid. Guilt created separation, just as it does today. God called out, "Where are you?" Not because He didn't know, but because He wanted them to realize their own distance. Sin always drives us away from God, yet He still seeks us. Have you felt that call in your own life? When confronted, Adam blamed Eve, and Eve blamed the serpent. Deflection, human nature's instinctive response to failure. But God, in His justice, pronounced judgment. The serpent would crawl, Eve would endure painful childbirth, and Adam would toil for survival. Yet even in judgment, grace emerged. God clothed them, covering their shame, just as He still offers, covering through His mercy. Expelled from Eden, they walked into a new, harsher reality. The perfect communion with God was broken, but not beyond repair. Even in their fall, there was a promise, a descendant who would crush the serpent's head. Redemption was already set in motion. The story was far from over. Life outside Eden was harsh, and Adam and Eve now faced the reality of survival. They had two sons, Cain, who worked the soil, and Abel, who tended the flocks. Each brought an offering to God. Cain from the fruits of the land, and Abel from the firstborn of his flock. But the power of God favored Abel's offering, for it was given with a sincere heart. This ignited jealousy in Cain, and resentment took root within him. God saw Cain's turmoil and warned him, "Sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." A moment of choice stood before him, but rather than mastering his emotions, Cain allowed anger to consume him. In a fateful act, he lured Abel into the field and killed his own brother. It was the first murder in human history, a tragic consequence of unchecked jealousy and pride. Chapter 4, Book of Genesis shows that God confronted Cain, asking, "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain's infamous response echoes through time. "Am I my brother's keeper?" He sought to deflect responsibility, but God already knew the truth. Abel's blood cried out from the ground, demanding justice. Even in judgment, however, God showed mercy. As punishment, Cain was cursed to wander the earth, his labor yielding no fruit. Yet God placed a mark upon him, a sign of protection, ensuring that no one would take vengeance upon him. This act of grace reminds us that even in discipline, God does not abandon us. Have you ever felt the weight of your own actions, yet still found mercy in unexpected places? Cain's exile led to the rise of cities and civilizations, but his legacy was one of brokenness. The story of Cain and Abel serves as a powerful lesson about the dangers of envy, unchecked anger, and refusing to take responsibility. It also highlights God's justice and mercy, demonstrating that no sin is beyond his sight, yet his grace remains available to those who seek him. The human heart still struggles with jealousy and competition today. How often do we compare our blessings to those of others, feeling resentment rather than gratitude? The lesson is clear. True worship comes from a place of sincerity, and bitterness only leads to destruction. The challenge remains: will we master our desires, or will we let them rule over us? And so, the early generations of humanity continued, but the cycle of sin had begun. However, hope was not lost. A new lineage would emerge, carrying the promise of redemption forward. As generations passed, humanity drifted further from God, indulging in corruption and wickedness. The world, once a reflection of divine perfection, became consumed by violence and immorality. But amidst this darkness, one man stood apart: Noah. He was righteous, walking faithfully with God when the rest of humanity had turned away. The power of God saw the evil in the world and decided to cleanse it, sparing only Noah and his family. God commanded Noah to build an ark, a massive vessel of salvation. It seemed like madness to those around him. There was no sign of rain, yet Noah obeyed without hesitation. He constructed the ark according to God's exact instructions, a testament to his unwavering faith. Imagine the ridicule he endured, the skepticism of his neighbors. Sometimes faith means standing firm even when the world calls you foolish. When the time came, pairs of every living creature entered the ark, guided by divine providence. The skies darkened and the heavens unleashed torrents of rain. For 40 days and nights, the earth was submerged. The waters consumed everything, wiping away the corruption of mankind. Inside the ark, Noah and his family waited, trusting that the power of God would fulfill his promise of preservation. After the rain ceased, the waters took months to recede. Noah sent out a raven, then a dove, seeking signs of dry land. When the dove returned with an olive leaf, hope was restored. New life was emerging. Finally, the ark rested upon Mount Ararat, and God called Noah and his family to step out onto a renewed earth. The world had been given a second chance. Noah's first act upon leaving the ark was to build an altar and offer a sacrifice to God. In response, the power of God established a covenant, marking the sky with a rainbow, a symbol of his promise never to destroy the earth by flood again. This covenant was not just with Noah, but with all future generations. It was a declaration of mercy and faithfulness. The story of the Great Flood serves as both a warning and a message of hope. It reminds us of the consequences of unchecked evil, but also of the boundless mercy of God. Even in judgment, there is redemption. God always provides a way for those who remain faithful. Have you ever faced a storm in your life and had to trust in God's provision? Noah's story teaches that obedience and faith can lead to salvation. He was not a perfect man, but he listened, trusted, and acted. The same choice stands before us today. Will we follow the path of faith or ignore the warnings before us? But humanity's journey was far from over. As Noah's descendants multiplied, their ambitions grew, leading them to a bold and dangerous endeavor, one that would once again challenge the authority of the power of God. Among the descendants of Noah, one man was chosen to play a pivotal role in God's plan: Abraham. At that time, he was known as Abram, living in Ur, a prosperous but idolatrous city. The power of God called him to leave his homeland and journey to an unknown land, with a promise that his descendants would become a great nation. Imagine the courage required to abandon everything familiar, relying solely on faith. Abraham obeyed, setting forth on a path that would shape the destiny of an entire people. God's promise was extraordinary, yet Abraham and his wife Sarah faced a significant obstacle. they were childless and advanced in age. Despite their doubts, the power of God reaffirmed his covenant, assuring them that Sarah would bear a son. The years passed, and the wait tested their patience. In an attempt to fulfill the promise on their own terms, Sarah encouraged Abraham to have a child with Hagar, her servant. Ishmael was born, but he was not the heir of the covenant. At the appointed time, God fulfilled his word. Sarah conceived and gave birth to Isaac. It was a moment of joy and confirmation that God's promises never fail. Yet Abraham's faith would be tested in the most profound way. The power of God commanded him to sacrifice Isaac, the son of promise. It was an unimaginable request, yet Abraham obeyed without hesitation. As he raised the knife, an angel intervened, stopping him. God provided a ram for the sacrifice, affirming that obedience and trust were the true offerings he sought. Through Abraham, God established an everlasting covenant, marked by circumcision as a sign of faith and devotion. He was promised that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars, and that through his lineage, all nations would be blessed. This covenant was not just about land or lineage, it was about relationship. Abraham's journey teaches us that faith is not merely belief, it is action, trust, and endurance. Even today, the legacy of Abraham's faith endures. His willingness to follow God's call, despite uncertainty, serves as a blueprint for anyone navigating the unknown. Have you ever felt called to step into something beyond your understanding? Abraham's story reminds us that when God calls, he also provides. But the journey of faith did not end with Abraham. His descendants would continue to face trials and divine interventions, leading to some of the most dramatic moments in biblical history. And among them, one event would stand as a testament to God's judgment and mercy: the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. As Abraham's journey with God continued, he received a divine revelation. Sodom and Gomorrah, two cities known for their extreme wickedness, were to be destroyed. The power of God had seen the depth of their corruption, where sin and injustice ran rampant. But Abraham, moved by compassion, interceded for the cities, asking if they could be spared for the sake of the righteous. God agreed that if even 10 righteous people were found, the cities would be spared. Yet, none were worthy. 2 angels were sent to Sodom, where they met Lot, Abraham's nephew. Lot welcomed them into his home, but the wickedness of the city soon became evident. The men of Sodom gathered, demanding that Lot hand over his guests for vile purposes. In response, the angels struck the aggressors with blindness and warned Lot. Destruction was imminent. He was commanded to flee with his family and not look back. As dawn broke, the power of God rained down fire and sulfur upon Sodom and Gomorrah, reducing them to ashes. The once thriving cities became desolate ruins, a testament to divine judgment. Yet, amid this devastation, Lot and his daughters escaped. However, his wife, overcome by longing and disobedience, looked back and was turned into a pillar of salt, a stark reminder of the cost of defying God's command. This event serves as a powerful lesson on the consequences of unrepentant sin. Sodom and Gomorrah had every opportunity to turn away from their wickedness, but chose defiance. It is a warning that echoes through time. When a society turns away from righteousness, it invites destruction upon itself. But even in judgment, God offers mercy to those willing to heed his warnings. Lot's story, however, does not end here. His choices in the aftermath of Sodom's destruction would have lasting consequences. Meanwhile, Abraham's lineage continued, leading to the next generation of God's covenant people, Isaac, Jacob, and the unfolding destiny of Israel. As God's covenant continued through Abraham's lineage, Isaac, the son of promise, grew and eventually married Rebekah. Their union was blessed, but for many years, they remained childless. Finally, through the power of God, Rebekah conceived twins, Jacob and Esau. Even in the womb, they struggled, foreshadowing the rivalry that would define their lives. Esau, the firstborn, was strong and a skilled hunter, while Jacob was more reserved, dwelling among the tents. Esau, driven by impulse, cared little for his birthright, the sacred inheritance given to the eldest son. One fateful day, he returned from hunting, exhausted and hungry, and found Jacob cooking a stew. Seizing the moment, Jacob offered him a trade, his birthright for a bowl of lentil soup. Without hesitation, Esau agreed, prioritizing temporary satisfaction over a lasting blessing. It was a decision that would shape the destiny of both men. As their father Isaac grew old and blind, he prepared to bless Esau. But Rebekah, remembering God's prophecy that the elder would serve the younger, intervened. She helped Jacob disguise himself as Esau, deceiving Isaac into granting him the blessing meant for his brother. When Esau discovered the betrayal, his rage was uncontrollable. Jacob was forced to flee, beginning a journey that would transform him into the man God had chosen. While in exile, Jacob encountered God in a dream, a vision of a ladder stretching to heaven, with angels ascending and descending. The power of God reaffirmed his promise to Jacob, declaring that his descendants would be numerous and that the land would belong to them. This divine encounter marked a turning point in Jacob's life, strengthening his faith and resolve. Jacob went on to serve his uncle Laban for many years, marrying Leah and then Rachel, the woman he truly loved. Through trials and deception, he grew in wisdom and character, eventually fathering 12 sons, the foundation of the 12 tribes of Israel. But his journey was incomplete. He had to face his past and reconcile with Esau. In a fateful night, before their reunion, Jacob wrestled with a mysterious figure, later revealed to be an angel of God. This intense struggle left him physically wounded but spiritually transformed. At dawn, he received a new name, Israel, meaning he who struggles with God. It was a testament to his perseverance and the divine destiny that awaited him. When Jacob and Esau finally met again, there was no war, no revenge, only reconciliation. Esau, despite his past grievances, embraced his brother. Their story is a powerful reminder that while human conflict and mistakes shape our journeys, redemption is always possible through humility and faith. But Jacob's story did not end there. His 12 sons would become the patriarchs of Israel, and among them, one would rise to endure betrayal and suffering, yet ultimately save nations, Joseph, the dreamer. After reconciling with Esau, Jacob settled and began raising a large family. Through his wives, Leah and Rachel, and their maidservants, he fathered 12 sons, each of whom would become the ancestor of a tribe of Israel. The power of God was evident in Jacob's journey, shaping not only his destiny, but also the future of an entire nation. His sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin, would form the foundation of the Israelite people. Among them, Joseph was Jacob's favorite, born from his beloved wife, Rachel. This favoritism was evident when Jacob gifted him a multicolored coat, a symbol of distinction and blessing. However, this special treatment sparked jealousy and resentment among his brothers. Joseph's prophetic dreams, in which his family bowed before him, only deepened their hatred, setting the stage for one of the most dramatic betrayals in the book of Genesis. Blinded by envy, Joseph's brothers conspired against him. One day, when he was sent to check on them in the fields, they seized the opportunity. They threw him into a pit and later sold him to a caravan of Ishmaelite traders heading to Egypt. To cover up their crime, they soaked his coat in animal blood and presented it to Jacob, who was devastated, believing his beloved son had been devoured by a wild beast. While Joseph's fate seemed sealed, the power of God was at work. He was taken to Egypt, where he would endure trials, but ultimately rise to a position of great influence. Meanwhile, Jacob grieved deeply, unaware that his son was still alive and that their story was far from over. Jacob's remaining sons carried their own struggles and stories. Judah, one of the most prominent, would later play a crucial role in Israel's lineage. His descendants would lead to the birth of King David and eventually the Messiah. Even in the midst of human flaws and failures, divine plans unfolded with precision. Famine struck the land, pushing Jacob and his sons toward an unexpected reunion with Joseph in Egypt. But before that moment arrived, years of trials, growth, and transformation would prepare them for what was to come. This chapter of their story is a testament to how God's plans transcend human betrayal, turning even the darkest moments into pathways of redemption. Jacob's legacy was taking shape, But one son's journey in Egypt would soon become the key to saving his family and fulfilling a greater destiny. Joseph, the dreamer, was about to rise to greatness. After being sold into slavery by his brothers, Joseph arrived in Egypt, where he was purchased by Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. Despite his misfortune, the power of God was with him, granting him wisdom and favor. Joseph quickly rose to a position of trust in Potiphar's household, managing all his affairs with excellence. His integrity and dedication made him stand out, but soon he would face another great trial. Potiphar's wife, captivated by Joseph's appearance and character, attempted to seduce him. However, Joseph remained steadfast in his faith and rejected her advances. Enraged by his refusal, she falsely accused him of wrongdoing, leading to his imprisonment. Though unjustly confined, Joseph did not succumb to despair. Even in prison, the power of God continued to guide him, granting him favor with the prison warden, who entrusted him with responsibilities. While in prison, Joseph encountered two of Pharaoh's former servants, the cupbearer and the baker. Both had troubling dreams, and with divine insight, Joseph interpreted them accurately. The cupbearer would be restored to his position, while the baker would meet his demise. Joseph asked the cupbearer to remember him once he regained Pharaoh's favor, but he was forgotten, and 2 more years passed in confinement. Then, Pharaoh himself was troubled by perplexing dreams. Visions of 7 fat cows being devoured by 7 lean ones, and 7 healthy ears of grain swallowed by 7 withered ones. None of his wise men could interpret them. It was then that the cupbearer remembered Joseph and spoke of his gift. Joseph was summoned before Pharaoh, and through divine revelation, he explained that the dreams foretold 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of severe famine. Impressed by his wisdom, Pharaoh appointed Joseph as second in command over all of Egypt. He was tasked with preparing for the coming crisis, storing grain during the years of plenty to sustain the land during the famine. In a single moment, Joseph went from prisoner to ruler, demonstrating how the power of God can turn the lowest circumstances into the greatest victories. As the famine spread, people from surrounding nations came to Egypt for food, including Joseph's own brothers who had betrayed him years before. Unaware of his true identity, they bowed before him, fulfilling the very dreams that had once fueled their jealousy. But Joseph was not driven by revenge. Instead, he tested their hearts to see if they had changed. Through a series of events, Joseph orchestrated a test that would reveal their true character. He concealed his identity, speaking to them as a powerful Egyptian ruler, questioning their motives and accusing them of being spies. Fear gripped them as they recounted their past and spoke of their youngest brother Benjamin, left behind with their father. Joseph's heart ached, yet he held back the truth, setting the stage for what was to come. Joseph's journey in Egypt was not merely one of hardship, but of preparation. Through trials, betrayal, and suffering, he emerged as a leader who would not only save Egypt, but also preserve the lineage of Israel. However, his story was not yet over. The final chapters of Genesis would bring a heartfelt reunion with his father Jacob and set the stage for the future of God's chosen people. As the famine continued to ravage the land, Joseph's brothers returned to Egypt once more, seeking food for their families. This time, Joseph could no longer contain his emotions. Overcome with tears, he revealed his true identity to them. The brothers were stunned, fearful that he might seek revenge. But instead of retaliation, Joseph reassured them, saying, "What you intended for evil, God used for good." His words reflected the divine orchestration of events, showing how the power of God turns pain into purpose. Joseph sent for his father Jacob, who was still grieving the loss of his beloved son. When Jacob heard that Joseph was alive, his heart revived, and he journeyed to Egypt with his entire household. Upon their arrival, Joseph embraced his father, weeping with joy. It was a reunion decades in the making, a moment of healing and restoration. The land of Goshen was given to Jacob's family, providing them with a place to thrive under Joseph's protection. As Jacob's life neared its end, he gathered his sons and blessed each one, speaking prophetic words over their futures. Among them, Judah received a particularly significant blessing, one that foretold the coming of a ruler from his lineage. This prophecy would later be fulfilled in the birth of the Messiah, Jesus Christ. Even in his final moments, Jacob was a vessel for divine revelation. setting the course for the future of Israel. After Jacob's passing, his sons carried out his wishes, burying him in the land of Canaan. Yet, even after his death, the brothers still feared that Joseph would seek vengeance. Seeing their anxiety, Joseph reassured them again, emphasizing that he held no grudge and that God's hand had been in everything. This act of grace solidified their bond, proving that true forgiveness triumphs over past wounds. Joseph continued to serve Egypt with wisdom, ensuring that both Egyptians and his own people prospered. The Israelites multiplied and flourished in the land of Goshen, fulfilling God's promise to Abraham. However, as generations passed, a new Pharaoh would rise, one who did not remember Joseph. The favor once enjoyed by the Israelites would turn to oppression, setting the stage for one of the most defining moments in biblical history, the Exodus. The story of Joseph and his family is not merely one of reconciliation, but of destiny. Through trials, betrayals, and triumphs, the power of God was at work, shaping the future of his people. Even in the darkest times, he remained faithful to his promises, ensuring that the nation of Israel would endure. Genesis closes with Joseph's final words to his brothers, assuring them that God would one day lead them out of Egypt and back to the promised land. Before his death, he made them swear an oath to carry his bones with them when that time came. His faith in God's promise never wavered, even in his final breath. The journey of Genesis may end here, but the story of God's people was just beginning. From the trials of Abraham to the triumph of Joseph, the foundation was laid for the great deliverance that awaited Israel. The power of God was still moving, preparing the way for the next chapter in the history of his chosen people. The story of Genesis is more than just an ancient account. It's the foundation of everything. From the creation of the world to the trials of humanity, every moment in this journey reveals something about our purpose, our struggles, and ultimately, the power of redemption. But now, the question remains, what will you do with this knowledge? The choices made by Adam and Eve, Noah, Abraham, and Joseph shaped the course of history. And just like them, we are faced with decisions every single day. Will we walk in faith, trusting in the power of God? Or will we allow fear and doubt to lead us astray? Their stories serve as reminders that even in failure, God's grace is ever present, offering redemption and purpose to those who seek him. What lessons from Genesis can you apply to your own life? Perhaps it's the courage of Abraham to step into the unknown, the patience of Joseph in the face of betrayal, or the obedience of Noah despite the doubts of others. Whatever it is, these truths aren't just historical. They are deeply personal, shaping the way we live, think, and believe. But remember, Genesis is just the beginning. The journey of faith continues, and the story of God's people unfolds far beyond these pages. Will you be a passive observer, or will you take action, seeking to grow spiritually and apply these lessons to your own life? The power of transformation is in your hands. If you want to continue exploring these incredible stories and uncovering their deeper meanings, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. There is so much more to learn, and together, we will keep discovering the timeless wisdom found in the book of Genesis and beyond. The journey is far from over. It's only just beginning.